Hello, Perfume Nation. Welcome to this very special episode. This is going to be a not just tell, but show of how to become good at smelling. Well, scents, perfume, fragrances, they belong to one of the most ancient sensing systems as it's known to organic life on Earth. But before I jump into the science-backed tips and tricks on how to actually become good at it, how to train your nose and more importantly your brain, let's talk about the Perfume Nation song. Yes, I made us a whole song. I think as a nation of perfume lovers, we deserve something special. And without further ado, please enjoy this snazzy, soulful intro made with love. Get your speakers ready. Here it comes.
Welcome to the show. Grab a seat, take it slow. You tune just in time to join the flow. Welcome to the hype where scents come alive, where knowledge and laughter find side by side. Perfume Nation is the place where we dive, exploring the scents and the stories they drive. We're glad that you came, just jump in the game, where we unveil secrets behind fragrance's fame. Welcome to Perfume Nation, we're glad you are here. Join our journey, lend us your ear. So let's start the show, give us a cheer. Welcome to Perfume Nation, we're glad you are here.
Isn't that sizzling hot? And I gave you just enough time to subscribe in whatever platform you're listening or watching this podcast. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. It is available everywhere. And even better off, subscribe everywhere so you can always have access to watch, rewatch, repeat some of the useful episodes or parts of the episodes where you're like, oh, what was she saying last time about this and that? Subscribe everywhere and you'll have access to it, well, as long as the podcast exists. All right? I hope that this is one of very many to come. But as you know, content doesn't make itself. So if you want to support what I do and what we are doing here, gathering all this data, trying to get the interviews scheduled, gathering the research, getting the papers ready, getting the summaries, kind of processing and preparing for the episodes, please use our donate button. It's always linked in every episode and just, show some love. Anyway, let's get down to business. When it comes to smelling, just like playing sports, just like doing any experiential type of training, the more you smell, the better you get at it. I think that's, I had to say it, but I think it's clear to everyone more or less. So when it comes again to target practice, as it's called in the literature, in the beginning, most of the time, for most people, there are exceptions. For most people, you'll be better served with short but frequent smelling sessions. That means dedicating a whole Saturday and going to a perfume boutique or a huge department store, be it Neiman Marcus, Macy's, or whatever, and just creating a barrage of scents that you're trying to process in a couple of hours, before you have your brunch with your friends or whatever. That's not going to be as helpful as you think. And if you extend it to 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, it's only going to get worse. You're going to get way more confused and more likely your brain it's almost like you're frying your brain with too much information, even if you could process so many smells, but also you're saturating your physical receptors. And unless you're doing, we'll talk about physical receptors just in a little bit, but generally speaking, these long sessions, they're just not good for any part of your processing and analyzing system that we have in our body. So, often, but short. How short? I would say 10 minutes. If you're not an experienced scent evaluator or, perfume blogger, perfume reviewer, people who've been doing this for a long time, and they kind of have a bit of a resilience and a lot of the back and forth kind of analytical thinking and smelling and these kind of patterns that allow them to calibrate a little bit when they're reaching physical saturation point with their nose, I would say 10 minutes is plenty. Within 10/15 minutes, you should be able to discern and try, I would say, about 5 to 7 scents. And this is where I would cap it. No matter what you're smelling, where, in which surroundings, above 7, I would not recommend going there. This is tough even for the professionals. I mean, professionals can endure a lot, but even they prefer not to go above 10 at a time and at one sitting. So 5 to 7, 10-15 minutes. How often in a day? Every hour. If you're doing it in very short kind of bursts, your brain and your nose have plenty of time, like 30, 20, even 20 minutes is enough. But 30 to 40 minutes is plenty for your brain to deload, for your nose to reaccommodate, to, kind of freshen your palate, so to speak, and you're ready to go again. As a summary, for how long and how many, 10 to 15 minutes. If you have to take at least a 15-minute break or 10-15-minute break to deload your physical receptors and even more importantly, your brain, and you can start again. About 5 to 7 fragrances. That's what I would firmly recommend. Anything above that, you're doing more bad than good to your pretty much training your inner recognizer, your inner neural net that is learning to discern different scents and memorize them. It needs enough of a buffer so things can kind of settle down and you can have a strong enough signal in between the sittings so it becomes more of a positive reward and positive feedback loop, so you can shove in more knowledge but in small batches, as machine learning scientists call it. Now to what to smell and how. There are plenty of options. The most probably student-like, if you were to be admitted to a perfumer school, you would do at least 2 tracks. You would try to smell and recognize and understand natural smells. No, not fragrances, not flavorings, just smells of everything, every object that exists around you. The smell of your kitchen table, the smell of your porch, the smell of a door in the bathroom, the smell of your pillow, even the smallest and the most nuanced scents, you should be able to find them, and that kind of sharpens your sensitivity in general. And the second track is learning to recognize basic aromatic ingredients, the most common bases that are used in perfumery, the most common or useful molecules, specific. You'll train your nose to recognize specific molecules. Even that's what perfumers do when they train. There is a way to do it so to speak, as a pedestrian. Some of the websites and some of the larger companies that produce chemical ingredients that are used in flavorings and perfumery do sell sets of basic ingredients and basic bases that you can just buy, and I think they're even pre-mixed. You don't even have to use a solvent and dilute them. Don't quote me on that. It depends on where you buy it. So there are ways to do it. However, unless you are really planning to train your nose to become a perfumer, if you are a person who wants to be a perfume blogger, if you want to be a fragrance evaluator, you might need to. Depends on the level of kind of your placement in the hierarchy of things. If you're an evaluator for your own brand, not necessarily. If you're an evaluator for kind of these innovation lab where chemists and perfume, mostly chemists, come up with new synthetic molecules that need or new mixes called bases, pre-mixed bouquets of aromatic molecules that they given a name, they're usually even patented, and then they can be served as almost these compounds like Lego blocks that perfumers can play with. So in that level, if you're an evaluator, you probably do need way more technical training. But for the majority of the cases, and for, I would say, even vast majority of perfume evaluators, bloggers, sales associates, marketers, art directors, you do not necessarily need to memorize and discern specific aromatic molecules. But I had to say it because it's one of the basic trainings. If you really are serious about being part of this industry, you inevitably will either start recognizing certain molecules that are added in abundance, such as hedione, ambroxan. Some of these names might be already even familiar somewhat, right? Or you will have to kind of go through formal training in order to do that. As I said, some of these basic mixtures and basic solutions with these molecules are available even commercially. You'll have to maybe Google it a little bit, but it's possible if you give yourself that kind of goal. And yet, I would not immediately send people that route, and here's my reasons why. Not only because it's difficult and you know, it requires a little bit of an uphill battle of finding it, ordering it, studying it long enough, but more to the end purpose of why you're training your nose. Because it's very rare that you will, unless you are training to be a perfumer, it's very rare that you will ever feel any of those molecules in isolation, because they will always come up with in some kind of mixture, a perfume olfactory blend. And the true and mesmerizing nature of olfactory design, that even if, let's say, the perfume consists of 5 notes, 5 specific molecules, I'll even say, not even notes. A note can be a pre-mixed bouquet of molecules. Just 5 molecules plus solvents and preservatives, right? Depending on which combinations of concentration of each ingredients, you can get rather unusual effects and non-linear changes in smell. Therefore, it's not going to be as easy to just, be a chromatographer and just say like, oh yeah, we have a 10% of this, 3% of that, 5% of that. And together you can kind of like sum it up. You can't sum it up. The overall effective impression that we get, forget it is subjective, it is. But even if certain things were more or less discernible in a very, very simple mixture, it's non-linear effect. You add very little of that, you smell these sensual, skin-like, oily presence. You add just a little bit more of ingredient 1, and it smells like poop. It is pretty much a very well-known quality of animal-based ingredients in perfumery. And each ingredient has its own non-linear curve of its own sensory profile, right? Like what it smells like given the concentration. But when you combine them together, they also non-linearly interact in the way that we perceive the scent, and they can create all kinds of effects that are not derivative of each of them in isolation. Therefore, if your end purpose is to understand, discern, and kind of become more knowledgeable, more of a thoughtful, knowledgeable perfume lover, I don't see how much help or how far you're gonna get with the kind of the basic aroma chemical training. If you're a sales associate or in marketing, you're also never gonna talk about perfumes in those terms. They are just too far removed from anyone who just wants to smell good, smell sexy, smell expensive, smell like piney woods on top of a mountain on a foggy morning, in Japanese mountains, mind you, something like that. the language that you will use when you're talking to other people is ill served by using chemical jargon. Therefore, I dare say a better way to smell is the following two, I would say, just two categories: knowing what you're smelling and blind tests. Well, knowing, it's the usual one. You go to a store, or or you buy a decant, or somebody gives you a sample. You sit down and you try it on a blotter or like a piece of paper or a piece of fabric. Then you try it on your skin, which is way more important if you're choosing something for yourself, because our skin is covered with all kinds of bacteria that produce their own smell, and it is also our biome is genetically and epigenetically connected to us. So in a way, it's almost it's like an alien DNA signature that represents you. It's a fascinating topic. We don't have time for it today, but if you want us to talk about the genetic smells, we can dedicate another episode to this. Anyway, whatever we put on our skin interacts with the smell producing aliens that are us. Essentially, they're as unique as our DNA, and we belong together. Essentially, we have a mixture that almost nobody else has. There are certain similarities in family lineages and how people smell, because it's genetic/epigenetic. But nevertheless, between the two unconnected people, actually between husband and wife, there can be a similarity, how scents open up on the both of you. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're same sex or opposite sex couple. It's not about gender, it's not about sex. It's about cohabitation. It's about touching each other and exchanging those precious microbes all the time. So there actually can be really interesting effects there if you're cohabitating with other people and animals or not. Actually, my cat tends to smell of my perfumes, as I've been told. He tries to get rid of it the best he can. It's effervescent, because I'm a perfume evaluator, so right. So I get to have everything. I also try to remove scents from everywhere around me. It's almost becoming this a little bit of an OCD thing, because I need to as clean of a space and the background as I can before I get to what I usually do here. But you can never really fully get rid of scents if you're also using them so much, unless you're in a specifically designed lab for it. One thing I'll say, that this common myth that you need to smell coffee in between scents is, I would say, kind of like a placebo effect. Coffee does not refresh your palate. There's nothing special about coffee. Coffee is just a strong enough and very universally recognized scent that it produces a much needed and controllable change in your nose and brain perception. So you're changing from something new, something you're studying, something you're not sure about, to something that nearly everybody, every brain and nose, they know this scent. And the change itself is that what helps you to switch between the fragrances that you're studying, or scents or smells that you're studying. But the coffee itself is not needed. You're just as well served by removing yourself from the source of the scent and just taking a few breaths and just cleansing the receptors and, resting your brain for a minute to better 5. So this is the effect of coffee. It's not the coffee. There's nothing special about it. You're not resetting anything. You're just introducing change to a controllable you're grounding your nose and your brain in something that you know. I still would say that coffee can have a lingering effect, that you will smell the next scent through the coffee because you just inhaled it. So I prefer, and I try to advise, if you can, just take a couple of minute break. Remove yourself from the scent, breathe somewhere, rest your brain, and try again. This is a much cleaner, better grounding technique than, giving yourself some objectively known to you scent that will still, I think it will still foreshadow whatever you smell after that. Does it make any sense? If it doesn't, leave me a comment below. I'll do a better job next time, but we're going to move on. So, how to take breaks, explain that. Same concept applies in any kind of studying of scents, right? But I want to transition to what we are going to talk about and do today. And this is my favorite way to train the nose and the brain, and that's called a blind test. The technique is more known in the wine community, blind testing of wines. They even have competitions. There are all kinds of fun things you can do there. And a lot of people don't know it, but 70%, if not more, of wine tasting is smelling. Because we only have 4 types of tastes for food and drinks. The rest of it is smelling. I actually have been recently in a conversation with somebody who's been working for wine distributors across the world, and just for fun, they threw me like a blind test of wines, and I did really well. Guess why? Because my nose and my brain are already pretty sensitive and more or less trained to recognize specific flavors. I'm not wine trained, so that would probably take me quite a bit of time to sharpen that detection in discerning system, specifically the molecules and the scents that you find common in different wines. But if you are a perfume lover, you're already kind of somewhat pre-trained to be really good at wine tasting, just so you know. Blind tests. I mean, you can call them blind tastings, more like from the wine connoisseur dictionary. I'm just going to use a simpler, more scientific definition of the process, blind tests. There are many fun ways to do them, but the most classic one is when you do not know anything about the perfume or scent that you are about to smell. You do it in 3 different attempts, and then you try to answer specific questions. There are other ways that are way more entertaining and fun. If you watched any of my videos on YouTube, you've seen that I've done a number of variations on blind tests. And one of the most hilarious and embarrassing ones is when I invite a friend or a collaborator and they pick perfumes that they know I know, or literally just go to my perfume collection, pick something, I can't see what it is, and then I try to guess what it is. You'll be blown away, especially if you have larger collection of fragrances, how few you can guess quickly. And there were instances where I was in shock that a given scent was in my collections. Like, I'm in denial that I own this. This does not look like me, does not sound, does not smell like something I would wear. You're lying to me. And then I was blown away when I actually saw what that was. So blind tests have like nearly miraculous power in them. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you find a way to do them. One way to do them, you have nobody in your family or social circles who can help you with that. You can buy a set from me and give me instructions on what kind of challenge would you like to pursue. I'll leave a link down below, and also, just to make it more accessible for people who are doing it for the first time ever, I'll leave you a super duper discount code that you can do it on budget. It's going to be limited to only 10 people, and so first come, first serve. So you pretty much put an item in your cart, you leave me a note, there will be a field to leave me a note, so you can leave it up to me and I'll surprise you and I'll design a blind test for you, or you can leave me some instructions, like I'm trying to learn to discern ouds, I'm trying to understand florals versus fruits, I do not understand what is woody notes, or like what is the difference between tobacco and tea. Whatever that is, I'm fairly confident that whatever the challenge that you put in front of me, I'll be able to give you a valuable and fun way to train your nose. So that's one way. The other way, it's just buying decants and asking somebody who you know, just don't tell me what it is, just spray it somewhere and give me the piece of paper. That's a really fun way to train yourself and actually test your perceptions. The only caveat of testing things that you know you have is that you know you have them, right? So your brain will do kind of like test hacking, as kids do on all kinds of tests, when you just eliminate the wrong answers and you guess the right one without actually knowing why you're guessing it correctly. So true blind test is when you have absolutely no reference, no knowledge of what it is. I got a super cool package from my subscriber, and you can send me yours if you want to. I'll leave all the information down below. There is my blogger address. You can send a love package and leave me the notes on, at least clues, so I could eventually guess it. I'll show you how it's done. So subscribers send me a blind test. It's very fun. I often embarrass myself horrifically when I do them, but we're going to do one today. And through the process, I'll give you tips and tricks of how to do that by yourself and do it together when me or any other your favorite perfume blogger does it on camera. Well, let's get this party started. I'm gonna spray on a blotter. This is just a normal piece of paper that I just cut into pieces. There's been a number of battles fought and lost and won in the discussions on what should you really spray on if you are trying to train your nose. Obviously, if you're just choosing your perfume for yourself, your skin is the appropriate target. However, if you're just studying and trying to train your nose and the brain, you need a more kind of like objective and neutral surface. There are specialized blotters, and they are made of, that type of paper is made in a way that they don't use too many dyes. They pretty much try to use the most neutral, the most nothing like cardboard, so it doesn't interfere as much with the scent. There are some people who say, well, just spray it on a piece of fabric. There are all kinds of thoughts about it. I find that it's more like tomato kind of conversations. For the most intents and purposes, any piece of paper, unless it's heavily inked or has stains on it, you know what I mean? If it's like any normal, clean piece of paper will do. And what I usually do, I spray something, if I have time, I spray something once because the perfume changes the way that you perceive it with time. So I already sprayed number 1 on this piece of paper. So now it's been probably 15 minutes, maybe slightly more. I get a chance to smell the base. So I'm going to smell the base. Try to remember what that told me. And refresh. Usually 1 or 2 sprays do. You don't need that much. Also, do not spray it close to your nose. You'll get overwhelmed. And the first couple of seconds, you mostly will be smelling alcohol evaporating. That can also actually kind of interfere with your perception. Again, if you've done it a million times, probably not. But if you consider yourself a student of olfactory design, try not to do it close to your face. So it's been couple of seconds, maybe 5-10. All right. Now I'll show you how it's done. Again, super simple, but notice things that I do that a lot of people don't. Okay, what I notice, since it's already a refreshment, so there is plenty of the base notes that are there, and I just added a little bit of the opening when I sprayed it. It's woodier and softer than what I remember in my first impressions when I sprayed it the first time. Number 1 to me is kind of this typical sweet fruituli, as it's called informally. It's like also called neo-shipper. What does it mean? It's very fruity, almost to the point of becoming sweet, jammy, gourmand. So it's like becoming, there are kind of watercolory fruits, something that's very light, either just an echo, an illusion of a fruitiness, or maybe something watery or souffle like. But there are fruits that are almost like, the preserves. They are sweet, they're jammy, they're edible, and that's what's usually called a gourmand, a fruity gourmand. That said, I also detect, to me, I can very simply describe it as sourness. That I know can lead me into many different directions. Certain sourness, as I smell it, can be citrusy, acidic sourness, or it can be these kind of, a lot of people, including me, describe it as green, wet, patchouli sourness. And if you combine, it's kind of like a classic recipe. It's all somewhat phenomenological, all of these terms for perfumery. Just let's remind ourselves that this language was developed out of necessity. There is no real fundamental law of physics behind it. So we're just using some terms that help develop a common language. So when I say it's fruits with something sour that I think is patchouli rather than citruses, but it's possibly a combination of both, something lemony, citrusy, orangey, and patchouli, plus this sweet, fruity block, and that what makes a fruitchuli. Very informal. A lot of perfumers don't like that. It's kind of a marketing jargon, but that's what, us pedestrians usually say. Fruitchulis belong to a more beautiful term, neo-shipper. Shipper is something fruity, something sweet, and something sour. Shipper classically is defined as always a presence of patchouli and this semi-sweet, fruity something block. It's also moss historically, but these days it's rarely anything that you would think is mossy like. That's what shippers are known and loved for. They are very contrasting. But this, what I smell here, to me is a classical fruitchuli on a sweeter side. Let's pause here and let's do a tip/sanity check. The best way to go through this one sitting, this experience, is to bring it in, breathe it a couple of times, just keep it close to your nose for like 2-3 breaths, and take it away. This taking it away, nobody does it. It kills me, because everybody who knows anything about olfactory system and the signaling system as we have it, our brain, almost all our systems, vision, auditory, and smelling, are based on detecting change. The fact that you're sticking that thing under your nose for 10 minutes is not going to make you better at smelling the thing. It's actually going to desensitize your physical receptors and your brain to what you're actually smelling. This is the key reason why people don't smell their favorite perfumes on themselves. No matter how much they bathe in them, you desensitize your receptors. They just pretty much adjust to the floor of our aroma chemicals in the air, and they nullify that as nothing. It's a very well-known desensitization effect in most sensing systems, including the sensing system of smell. So bring it in long enough so you can kind of get a few whiffs. So I would say 2-3, maximum 5 breaths. And also extending the breath sometimes helps. Just like we were taught in mindfulness and yoga, comes handy. So 4 count breaths, everyone. Just take any perfume, do it with me, so we can kind of train the proper form of our athletic endeavor in smelling. and then speak your mind. Here is another tip. What kind of questions, what kind of associations to form? First and foremost, just describe the scent. We've done that. Now, I find it super cool, fun, and useful to kind of force yourself a little bit, push yourself over the decision boundary on several dimensions. That's kind of also going to be very relevant for those of you who aspire to be in marketing, sales, and evaluations. What kind of brand could that be? Is that niche, designer, affordable, whatever categories that you can come up with, just beside the scent profile? And if you can, what specific brand and fragrance that could be or similar to. So I would say very popular, kind of middle 2000s profile of Fruituli. I would bet this is a designer scent. Though what's called niche, and we talked about in the previous episode, can be nearly everything because it kind of in volume dominates the market now. So anything like guessing niche, I only guess niche when it's something so unusual that I cannot see luxury/designer market ever, or affordable, putting something like that. When it's something so exotic, so unique, it's like, okay, no way you'll find it in any department store. This is how I do it, because otherwise it's kind of a cop-out to say that, oh, it could be niche. Well, anything can be niche because niche is everything these days. So to me, it's very complimentary. I've smelled something like that 1,000 times. And in terms of what was trendy back in the day, I place it in 2000s. I think it's Coco Mademoiselle Chanel, if I had to make a very specific call. I also, just for fun, you don't have to do it, but just for entertainment value, I tried to look in my olfactory library. What do I have that kind of could come close? It's rare that you can come up with exact dupes in your collection, but it's always useful to do these kind of pairings, especially if you aspire to be a perfume blogger, perfume reviewer, or to work in sales. Because, these kind of recommendations are a must for people who play these roles. So what I came up with, it's such a pleasing and popular profile that it's boring to me. So I no longer have fragrances of that kind. But the one that I have and love actually more than what I just smelled is Lalique by Lalique. The one that I have, actually, that will be useful for us to eventually transition to. This view. So what are we going to do? So this is it's kind of the pears, also patchouli pears, but this is more floral fruity than it is sour sweet. So I would say floral fruitier. It's not an exact hit. It's not number one for sure, something else. But I would put them in the same family. Okay. So here we have Coco Mademoiselle. And this is how you test yourself. And I have individually wrapped envelopes where when I'm done guessing, we're actually going to discover what it is. So if you guys want to send me a blind challenge, don't forget to include individually wrapped pieces of paper so I can guess one by one. And that's what I'm going to do if you order your blind test from my library. All right. What was it? This is Tuxedo by Yves Saint Laurent. Strange, I remember Tuxedo as something not that sweet. Well, let's look it up. So, Coco Mademoiselle, as you see, citrus, patchouli, sweet, rose and vanilla, right? So let's look at Tuxedo. And this comes the second part of your training, and my training in this case, is now that you know, smell it again, right? Smell it again. and see what changes. So some of the motifs, I guess, just so you see the sweetness of vanilla off. It's nearly in every edible gourmand. Anything sweet is almost always vanilla. Tonka beans. We got patchouli, just without the citruses as they are present in Coco Mademoiselle. To me, it's a little bit boring. So that's another thing. I just do it for fun, but it's kind of fun as you're training to do a little bit of a diva hot takes. It's like, would I wear it? Would I not? Does it smell cheap? Does it smell expensive? That's pure entertainment value, though. For people in marketing, it actually might be useful to kind of do this type of training. To me, as I told you, it smelled like the usual designer stuff, so I wouldn't pay more than $100 for it. Though the prices these days, I can't even quote any exact price because they're skyrocketing. But you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't put premium dollars onto something that smells like that. But it's like a compliment getter. It's a very understandable, though I dare say, kind of been there, done that. It's a not very well recognizable scent. It smells like many others. Therefore, I'm not sure if I would pay, because this is a boutique collection by Yves Saint Laurent. This one is pricey. I don't know. Not convinced. My hair is the usual delightful mess, but one thing you can't blame me for is the fact that I do not decorate. I'm decked out like a Christmas tree today, just so you have something to look at. All right, number 2. Let's refresh this. As I said, I'm just checking the base. And, I got something on my head. I'll have to wash it. Otherwise, it will interfere with the rest of it. All right, number 2. I mean, I'd say like number 1 was a hit. Like 80% guessed correctly. I think guessing the notes is the most important part, but the rest of it comes as a much appreciated bonus if you guess the exact perfume. That's just top notch. All right, this is very potent, bright, sweet, and somewhat annoying. To me, this is like a powerhouse. It makes me think of the 80s, 90s, more like the 80s. Not aldehydic, not that. I do not smell any of those like old school vintagey, neither aldehydes nor, goodness, I'm blanking, no shipper. This is just very sweet with some very potent note here that just, to me, annoy. Maybe it's along. It's just this kind of sweetness that just smothering, so smothering. Like, actually, that could be La Vie Belle-like fragrances. There's a whole plethora. There's a family of sugary, jammy fragrances that was super duper popular for decades, essentially, starting in 2000s. But to me, in this profile, it's just dated. It smells very sugary, sweet, smothering, but dated. I would be surprised if this is new. To me, again, it's one of those La Vie Belle-ish situations. I think some of the Jean-Paul Gaultier, some of the La Femme, the female, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like those female statue fragrances could be, because those were really sweet. I don't detect any jasmine though. Yeah, again, in this case, just for the sake of clarity, I'm not really detecting anything that I recognize as a specific note, so I'm not going to torture myself or you. And so as I said, it's something super sweet, gourmand. I don't know what this annoying Chloe note. I thought about the 80s, but now I'm switching to, it's like Lancome, L'Oreal type of fragrance, or something designer. I would not pay more money for it. Though these rich, sweet gourmands can be produced by Italian niche, sometimes by certain boutique lines of designer brands, but to me it just doesn't smell rich or complex enough. Like, or even more so, you can find things like that much more affordable. Therefore, I'm not placing a high price tag on this. Would I wear this? No. Never. Never. What is it though? Goodness gracious. Huh. Well, I did guess it right. I didn't guess the brand. This is Calvin Klein Reveal. You see now that I'm reading, can you see that? It has marine notes. Ain't that interesting? And now I can sort of smell some kind of saltiness, but only when told. And that's what I call a magical power of marketing. You'll smell what you're told, which is scientifically backed feature that we have with our smelling system here. Funny fact, humans are horrible at discerning scents, and all our other senses will easily dominate our impressions. Like if something, let's say if you put a liquid in a glass and you color that liquid orange, no matter what kind of juice, like apple juice or something else you put in it, if it looks like an orange juice, we'll say that it tastes like an orange juice and smells like an orange juice. So we're actually, we confuse scents very easily. We're not like dogs. Unfortunately, we need a lot of training to really reliably discern them between themselves, and also not to be, we're very easily overpowered by any other information that comes on top of a scent. So now that I see that it's supposed to be salty and marine, so oceanic, I smell it. I didn't before. What does it smell like? Juliet has it gone. These are quite different perfumes. I don't know why are they all in the same realm. Perfume aroma? Come on. Acqua di Sale. I have this Italian niche, this specific bottle, Perfume aroma Acqua di Sale, and please give me a break. Calvin Klein Reveal. Very faintly, very remotely. But for as inexpensive as it is on the gray market, at least, this is a powerful beast of a scent, I'll tell you. I'll not wear it, sorry. But I can see people who really want long-lasting beastly scents with a little bit of a twist with the salty marine flavor in here. Might be into it. You're starting to get the gist of it, right? All right, number 3. I smell the base. I just refreshed it off camera on the blot of paper. Here's what I feel. I would place it as a actually even more classical fruity shipper than the number 1. I feel way more this patchouli sourness and zestiness, which I love in shippers. It's such a delightful contrast. There's a little bit of, I feel like there's something else in there, as usual. Herbaceousness of some kind of herbs. And and sometimes that if that's the furthest you can go in a given sitting, that's fine. The more you do it, the more nuances you will be able to feel. And again, since you're comparing blind impressions eventually with seeing what it is and reading about the notes and trying to create these olfactory associations, you'll get better at it, just like I'm going to get better at it the more I do it. But tonight, it's been a long day. I would place my bet on Cartier La Panther. And here's my cat. Get out of here. Oh, goodness gracious. Gray, come on, stop. Oh, now you're gonna guess perfumes with us. I know you hate them. But I don't care. Because you've been trouble. You've been trouble. Yeah. Look at that. I call him Mini Horse Cold Gray. That's his name. Gray, stop acting like a rebel. He was trying to knock off one of my lights, like intentionally. He was literally trying to knock it off for no reason whatsoever. Okay, now I'm covered in cat's hair. Let's continue. So if I had to guess, I would give it like a confident, one of those classic fruity shippers, and the only one that came to mind to me tonight was Cartier Le Panther Eau de Parfum, potentially. I don't remember that one, but the one that I have in my collection is Cartier Le Panther Parfum. They have different concentrations, and they are not, it's not only difference in concentration, it's more like a variation on the same theme. So I absolutely adore the Parfum one. It has a kind of like a black label and more narrow base, just in case you're trying to visually distinguish them. But this is just pure perfection. To me, Cartier Panther Parfum is the iconic, well-made, easily accessible, fruity, like this kind of apricot-y, peachy patchouli shipper. This is the one that I would recommend you start with, so you benchmark everything else by it. So I would say number 3 could be a relative, but it's not that. So let's see how far off base I am. I probably would wear it, but I prefer the one that I have to what I'm smelling right now. This I might be so wrong. It's devastating if I am. Well, it's definitely peach. Definitely peach. What is it? It's Puzzle Number 1 by Micallef. All right. Let's look it up. Puzzle Number 1 by Micallef. Micallef is very odd in their distribution. They are very hard to find a place to try reliably. And some fragrances they keep forever for unknown reasons for me, and some really good ones they discontinue. But since that's one of the true niche houses, still independently owned, so I'm willing to forgive a lot for truly niche, independently owned houses that's been around for decades. It's floral and fruity. I got that right. Citrusy. Lactonic? I wouldn't call it lactonic. Okay, so it's not quite, it doesn't explicitly say patchouli, so we can't really call that a shipper. But it's sour, sweet, fruits with certain sourness. What could that be? Only the citruses? There's nothing else here that can make it feel a little bit sour? Okay. Yeah. I would not probably buy it, but okay. Well, what do we say? I was wrong with the placement, so this is not a designer scent. It's a rather niche scent. But by its profile, I should have guessed Micallef. Micallef makes delightful fruity fragrances. They were in the game, kind of being the top of the mountain with the fruits, sensual fruits, way before Kilian even got on stage. So Micallef should be top of mind when you're thinking about delicious, soft, sensual fruits. Number 4. Okay, and I'm going to refresh it now. Another very helpful idea when you're doing blind tests with somebody else, like when I watch blind tests, it's like, the extra credit. If when you hear a description, it doesn't matter how wrong the person is, but once they give you a profile, start guessing of what it could be to kind of increase your ability to recall similar fragrances per description. That is invaluable skill, especially if you're giving recommendations, be it on camera or in store, in any kind of perfume boutique, or just to your friends and family. So watching blind tests is actually very helpful. Not only you're learning how to do it and learning the language, coming out like hearing useful allegories, comparisons, but you should also actively participate and start guessing. Even like leave a comment like as we go along, like number 4. What, according to the description, if I was faithfully describing the fragrance, what it could be? What do you know that smells similar? Whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't matter. You will increase your ability to very quickly generate recommendations given a profile or preference. So, number 4. To me, this is a well-balanced, very clean, polished neroli. So I feel here kind of this some like sugar and lemon lemonade, but it's not too sweet. It's rather balanced and almost a little leathery in its base. It's just that this profile is so smooth and polished. Neroli and lemon flowers, they can have this kind of scratchy, it's almost like you're getting something scratchy in your nose. So in order to make lemon blossom / neroli sound polished and smooth, it usually takes other combinations to kind of give them that particular look, if you wish. So there's something calm and confident about this. I dare say this is neroli. Somewhat soapy, so if it smells like lemon soap, I usually guess it could be magnolia. Magnolia flowers to me smell like lemon soap. It depends. There are hundreds of different magnolia trees and they all smell different depending on where they grow and the type. But the most magnolia flowers that I smelled to me smelled like lemon soap. I guess it's vice versa. Lemon soap smells like magnolia, not the other way around. So it could be something with magnolia, but I would make a guess it's either citrusy or lemon tree flowers / neroli, which is almost a synonym to lemon tree flowers. The only difference is the process of how you get the ingredient. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. So yeah, that's all I can say. I would say this is something that, essentially it falls into a refreshing but not too bitter, not too bergamoty, not too Italian cologne. This is kind of very cleaned up, brushed and polished type of a citrusy scent. It could be anyone, including Jo Malone. Okay, let's see. I would not pay a lot of money for it, so I'm placing it somewhere in, I don't know, Jo Malone, L'Occitane, maybe even some of the Aqua Allegorias by Guerlain. Oh my god. I could not be more wrong. This is an interesting one. This is Eau de Merveille Blue by Hermes. Wow. Not neroli at all, at least according to the marketing team description. Okay. Hermes Blue. Let's see if I can get lucky. Here we go. Eau de Merveille Blue. Do you see this description? Okay. Oh, now I feel salty. You see, it's just, yeah, I mean, kind of aquatic, maybe. I still smell neroli, but a very cleaned up neroli. It's woody. I guess it was soft leather, but no. 2016. Come on. Somebody help me here. Nobody smells neroli? Really? Nobody? Nope. All the comparisons are about marine scents. Okay, I do not give up. I don't want to declare a loss. You see, when you smell it knowingly, that's what people say, like, yeah. Very nice aquatic perfume. Okay, all right. Well, I smell neroli here. And one of the best cleaned up ones. Because I've been on a hunt for a good, solid neroli scent for the longest time ever, because I'm not really a big friend with that note as a dominant one. It's always too scratchy, too rough for me. So I guess there's no a trace of lemon flowers here, at least not according to the description and marketing of the fragrance, but I smell it, so good work. Can you see that? I completely missed the whole aquatic part of this equation. Now that I'm looking at the description and smelling it, I guess, yeah, I still smell a very polished neroli though. I actually spent I think at least a year trying to find my perfect neroli scent, tried a bunch of things, got tired of it and just gave up. I'm not a big fan of neroli or lemon flowers as a dominant note. They're always too scratchy or too rough for me. So, even though this says nothing about lemon flowers, could be one for me. Classy, elegant. I mean, I am getting on board with the marine and the aquatic now, but it was not my first guess. See, like, it's just such a deceiving story sometimes, but we'll get better with time, right? Okay, would I wear it? Maybe, but I don't see myself truly gravitating toward it in the sea of scents that I already have. And when it comes to aquatics, there are some that I prefer way more, like Beach Hot, Amouage, Liquid Petit Blue by Serge Lutens is a blue water that they have. Even Tom Ford Costa Azzurra, I kind of prefer that aquatic story than this, but it smells elegant. I'll give it that. It's a very appropriate scent profile for Hermes. Number 5. Okay. Quick check on the base. Woo! Whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa. That is a turn of events. Okay. This is very smoky. Very severe. I haven't tried some of the rougher leather scents by Memo Paris, but that's what I imagine Russian leather or some of their more austere, kind of rough, aggressive leather scents are like. But right now, at the opening, for me, it's all smoke. It's just burned. Something burned. Very smoky, almost, I wouldn't say that it goes bitter. You know, like some smoky fragrances turn salty or bitter. They almost like smell like salami, actually, hard salami. Some smoky fragrances. This one doesn't quite go there. It stays centered, which brings me to the thought that this is either tobacco-centric scent or some kind of like black, rough leather scent. This, oh my God. Oh. I would be very surprised if this is marketed toward women. Almost no chance. I think this is marketed toward men, or it's niche. And among niche, I would go to Memo. I think one of the Cartier hours, Leurs, I forget which number. It's very smoky. But this is also, it's equal parts of smoke, tobacco, and leather, or some kind of mix of them all. I would love to stand close to a man who can pull it off. I could even try to pull it off, but it's a bit too debonair. It's pretty savage, I'll say. It's not for everyone, it's not for every occasion. It's cool though. I like it. It's very long lasting and it stays, I would say, because I sniffed the base, right? Like it had time to breathe and to evaporate. And the base and the beginning and the heart kind of gave me the same vibe. So I'm placing this niche, maybe something that I don't know well about boutique or higher end designer fragrances, and something marketed toward men most likely. All right, number 5. And as I said, would I wear it? Unlikely, but I appreciate how solidly built it is. Let's see. I mean, my last guess before I look at it is that it could be tea scent or tobacco scent. But primary guess is kind of like one of those like rough leathers. Okay, let's see. I have never tried this, but I guessed it just right. This is very, very niche. This is Cuir, how do you say it in French? By Mona Diorio. Pretty much leather, just written in French. Okay, let's take a quick look, just so we confirm my description or get more nuanced on it. Smoky, leather, animalic. You know, I regret not saying animalic because now that I know what it is, it does have very characteristic kind of like this civet-y kind of like animalic nature that's very piercing. Not a big fan of heavily animalic fragrances, but it definitely has that. Balsamic, yes. Fresh, spicy? I guess so. You know, in the opening, there is some kind of, it's a little bit of this poisonous greenness about it. Yeah. Can you see the notes? Hope you do. All right. I didn't guess the brand, but I've never actually been exposed to the leather by Mona Diorio, so I probably couldn't have. But I was pretty close on this one. And with that, we can call this blind test and tips and tricks on how to develop your nose a success, I dare say. Please let me know in the comments below what was clear, what wasn't, what was your experience going through with me. I hope you managed to guess a few, at least to bring from your memory a few potential candidates given the description. Thank you so much for watching, and clearly, I wouldn't leave you without a new super duper snazzy outro song, right? You know I got you covered. So when you're clicking on that like and subscribe button, when you're writing those comments, you'll be listening to this super duper hot, soulful little zinger. Enjoy.
Hey there, you reached the end, but don't just depart. Hit like, subscribe, it's a way to take part, to support your love, it's an art. Like and subscribe, be the vibe, keep us alive in this digital sea, it's how we ride. It's more than a click, it's a bridge, a connection. Each donation, a show of affection. We're in this together, seeking perfection. So here's a call to one and all. Stand with us, answer the call. Let's make some waves and stand tall, yeah.